Hello everyone. We welcome you to this very special episode of our podcast as we have a very special guest today, Mr. Sulay, the founder of Bummer. We all have seen him in the Shark Tank, and today we have talked about entrepreneurship, fundraising, D2C, and much more. Hope you all enjoy this episode a lot, and let's get started.
All right. So आज हमारे साथ हैं सुलय लवसी. He's the founder of Bummer.in. He got a deal from Shark Tank India and sharks like Aman Gupta and a little bit of Doglapan from the Steel Clover. He'd be sharing his insights about D2C, building Bummer, the challenges, and also some of the tips and tricks that you can use in your entrepreneurial journey. So welcome Sulay.
Thanks,
Right.
Sarthak. Thanks for
So
having me.
इट्स अ प्लेजर होस्टिंग यू टुडे. सो सुले, एक बार स्टार्टिंग से शुरुआत करते हैं, फ्लैशबैक में जाते हैं, राइट? स्कूलिंग पे चलते हैं, ठीक है?
Mm-hmm.
बिकॉज आजकल ट्रेंड है, लाइक एक वेव चली एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप की, एंड व्हाट
Right,
वी आर सीइंग इज कि एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप डेवलपमेंट एज अ सब्जेक्ट इज कमिंग अप इन schools, right?
right.
It is being included in school, colleges, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
students are taking up, you can say, एक mini projects kind of a thing कि अपने crafts बनाए, sell out करे, right? So
Right.
आपकी schooling days पे चलते हैं. How was Sule in his classes 6 to 12th वाला जो zone है? Because that's where the real development happens.
No, I agree. I think that is probably one of the most pivotal times जहाँ पे the essential growth happens. You are getting exposed to a lot of things as a growing brain, as a growing body. But मेरी schooling यार काफी काफी ज्यादा discipline वाली थी, पता है? मतलब
Okay.
I went to a school जहाँ पे we could not bunk schools. It was very disciplined. I think I've heard so many friends जो दूसरी दूसरी स्कूल में से गए हैं कि यार 10th 11th 12th at least in the later stages of school कि यार bunk करके मूवी देखने चले गए, कहीं बाहर चले गए. I mean I never had a schooling situation like that because my school was extremely disciplined and extremely strict as a school. um but I think couple of things that did हमारे टाइम पे यार entrepreneurship नहीं थी स्कूल में. तो वो तो हम पढ़े नहीं है बिल्कुल भी. But one thing was for sure कि that age, that's uh, years of 10th 11th and 12th, or maybe even 11th and 12th, I was a very average student. I was typically a backbencher. I mean, it's one of those quite literal stories where you hear कि यार backbencher वाले ही भले पीछे बैठे होते हैं but ध्यान ज्यादा देते हैं. So I was one of those backbenchers. Never really did, like, was never really one of the topping students, but पीछे से top 10 में आ जाते थे हम. ऐसा ऐसा कामकाज था हमारा. um but yeah, man, I think schooling was an integral part of at least uh, uh you know growing up to like the idea of business, because I was very, at least very clear कि science में नहीं जाना है, वो physics chemistry biology वो सब नहीं करना है यार हमें life में, मतलब हो ही नहीं पाएगा. I think integral part in shaping what I can do today. Absolutely.
राइट. सो आपने बोला कि आपका, लाइक, यू वर अमंग्स द एवरेज स्टूडेंट्स, लाइक
हाँ,
जिसके ग्रेड उतने भी बुरे नहीं है कि उसको टीचर
हाँ,
से झाड़ पड़ रही है, उतने अच्छे भी नहीं है कि पेरेंट्स से तारीफ, राइट?
but
यू आर
exactly.
यू आर समवेयर इन द मिडल कि भाई अपने ऊपर भी काम कर रहे हैं और साथ साथ में एकेडमिक्स भी चल रहा है, राइट? सो
Yeah.
कमिंग टू दैट, आपने एक और बात बोली कि एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप आपने पढ़ा नहीं है, राइट? सो डू यू फील कि एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप कैन रियली बी टॉट?
That's a brilliant
एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप.
question, right? Like, that's a brilliant question, I would say, because मैं जब यूएस गया था पढ़ाई करने, when I went to America for my masters, my program was a masters in entrepreneurship. Um, and when we joined this program, the very first question was कि can entrepreneurship be taught, or it is an inherent trait as a
राइट.
person.
राइट.
Uh, I feel that in, at least in my perspective, um, the entrepreneurship cannot be taught. It cannot be taught. I feel that certain skill sets can be taught as a part of entrepreneurship that will help you execute better. But the overall decision making, the street smartness जो होती है अगर हम कहें तो, right, or the understanding of execution, that is something that cannot be taught. मतलब मैं आपको सिखा सकता हूँ कि यार D2C वर्स में CAC क्या होता है, LTV क्या होता है, your basic metrics KPIs that you track as a part of D2C, वो सिखा सकता हूँ मैं, ऑन पेपर सिखा सकता हूँ और तुम समझ भी जाओगे. But what to do with that data is something that cannot be taught. So I think it's a combination. My answer is a combination of the two. And so yeah, I think that is just general how you take up education, how you take up execution, and a
Hmm.
combination of everything that sets you up for being a good entrepreneur. Successful is a very different metric in my, but at least a good entrepreneur, you know.
Right, Sule. So you come from Ahmedabad, right? And when we talk about Ahmedabad or Gujarat in itself, it's hub of entrepreneurs, right? Starting from the top shots, Adani Group to each
Right.
and every entrepreneur. Like अगर मैं बात करता हूँ entrepreneurship की तो एक गुजरात में अगर आप जाओगे तो हर दूसरे घर में हर एक घर में इनफैक्ट आपको entrepreneurs मिलेंगे. Like उनका एंड गोल है कि भाई स्कूलिंग करी कॉलेज करा एंड में बिजनेस संभालना है. डजेंट मैटर
Right.
फैमिली का है या अपना है. सो आपका भी फैमिली बिजनेस था कुछ ऐसा बैकग्राउंड.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. तो my family's also been in business, और वो 18-19 साल वाला जब मैं लड़का था, तब ऑब्वियसली द गोल वाज कि यार बाहर से पढ़ाई करेंगे, कुछ अच्छी एजुकेशन एजुकेशन करेंगे और वापस आके पूरा फैमिली बिजनेस में मतलब बढ़िया धूम मचा देंगे टाइप्स काइंड ऑफ एन, which I would say that will stand true for close to about majority of the 18, 19, 20 year olds, who have family business and they just yeah, let's study XYZ and then we'll come back and make dramatic changes. So I think for me also that was the perspective, and that was right up until the time when I went to America. I'll study here, I'll get some experience and then come back to India and join the family business. But I think there was a very strong realization, which I think a lot of people should also have, is the fact that um, if you if you have the passion, if you have the ability, then the time is now. Right? In terms of doing something of your own, because everyone has been of the mindset that even if we join the family business or even if we do something else, we'll do some changes, we'll start something, some new businesses as a part of the family business, right? Why not do something of your own completely, where you know for a fact that in case you fail, or in case there are chances where you're struggling, you have a fail-safe mechanism already ready for you, right? Now, what that does, I would say that the people who succeed at the most are people who believe that there is no fail-safe mechanism. यही करना है मेरे को, मतलब खत्म है बात, इसके बाद कुछ, मतलब इसको by hook or by crook, this business has to succeed. And classic example of someone like Ritesh Agarwal from Oyo, right? Who did not have a fail-safe mechanism. Now, guys like who don't have a fail-safe mechanism and end up doing so well, यार तुम्हारे अपने पास तो फेल सेफ मैकेनिज्म भी है, so take that risk, right? It could be on VC money, angel money, or you could bootstrap it depending on your situation. But the time is now, and it's not like people at 40, 50, 60 years old also don't do startups, but the passion and the drive is at its peak at this point in time, and there are very few people who can actually have the same passion at 40, 50 years old also.
Right.
So the time is now to do it, whether you have family business, whether you have anything else. If you have the advantage, if you have the privilege, and if you genuinely believe that you can crack something, the time is now, I think. Nothing else.
Great. I think that's one of the points that we, as young entrepreneurs, even if anyone who is a student, college student, school student, they should understand कि if you have the right, right problem-solving attitude, or let's say the right passion for anything that you
Right.
love or maybe you are good at, you
Mm-hmm.
can convert it into a business. But with
Easily.
passion, I think there is one of the most you know I would say the most unaddressed problem कि passion तो है बच्चों में, but at times they are not going into the right direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
they choose their passion, but उनका फिर वो obsession बन जाता है. वो सोचते हैं कि यार मैं ये चीज कर रहा हूँ, ये चीज वर्क करेगी, बट वो ये
Mm-hmm.
नहीं देखते कि साथ में क्या वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर भी रहे हैं, क्या वो प्रॉब्लम
Right.
एड्रेस भी हो रही है. So how to identify that in the very early stage? क्या उसका कोई mechanism है आपके पास? What your philosophy is this?
Very straightforward mechanism to this, and I have seen so many founders, so many people who are trying to start something, make the largest mistake. कि यार I have an idea, I want to do this, I want to do that, मेरे को ये start करना है, वो start करना है, ये service offer करनी है. uh, if you're genuinely building something generic, I mean, let's say like opening up your own, something like a t-shirt store, for example, right? Then I think there are ideas, thoughts that are already into the market. You don't need too much validation, you need the right execution skills. Valid, क्योंकि वहां पे product market fit already है, वो product market fit already है. But if you're trying to do something slightly unique, right, and you're excited about it, कि यार ये इसको कुछ बना सकते हैं, the biggest thing is that you get so obsessed, as you rightly said, you get so obsessed with that idea कि यार भाई ये तो बहुत बड़ा market है, इसमें तो हम kill कर देंगे. But what people fail to do as a first step is do market research. If you have not, and by market research I don't mean reading those reports and all these things. बाहर मार्केट में जाओ, बाहर रास्ते पे घूमो, कम से कम 200 300 400 लोगों से बात करो, फ्रेंड्स फैमिली सबसे बात करो, एंड टेक एन अनबायस्ड ओपिनियन. फ्रेंड्स फैमिली 20 30 40 पीपल, व्हाटएवर फ्रेंड्स इन, और इवन 10 पीपल यू हैव, राइट? वहां से थोड़ा सा बायस्ड ओपिनियन मिलेगा, बिकॉज दे आर योर फ्रेंड्स एंड फैमिली. The real test comes after 40 50 people who you don't know, but you've connected either through LinkedIn, you've connected through friends of friends, you've connected through some Facebook groups, through some platforms. If you do not have data from at least 150 200 people like those, hey, this is the idea, this is the business, this is where it will happen, this is how convenient it will be, and this will be the price. Is this something you would be willing to pay for and get this as a product or a service? If the answers to these you don't get on a positive note, then you need to already realize that there needs to happen a pivot needs to happen.
Right.
So I think what a lot of people again have been doing is कि यार this is amazing, ये मैंने यूएस में देखा है, बढ़िया चल रहा है, इसको बस उठा के यहाँ पे इंडिया में चालू कर देते हैं, थोड़ा बड़ा पैसा लगा के चालू कर देते
Right.
हैं. यार बट यार इंडियन कंज्यूमर पर्सपेक्टिव से लोगों से बात करो. Try and understand, talk to your if you don't talk to your TG, you don't have a product market fit automatically. As simple as that. So,
Right.
so I mean, if you solve for market research, if you solve on a large scale with a relatively decent sized survey group, तो मतलब then the chances and the insights you will gain from that also. लोग कहेंगे नहीं यार इसको ऐसे कर वैसे कर, ये price point तू 1000 रुपए का बोल रहा है, नहीं यार ये I think 800 is a fair price point. So you gauge that sentiment very drastically. So I think that's a supremely important aspect in my opinion.
अमेजिंग. आई थिंक ये आपने बहुत सही चीज बोली कि प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट अचीव करना. डू यू थिंक इट्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट टू अचीव अ प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट इन द बिगिनिंग व्हेन यू आर जस्ट स्टार्टिंग? बिकॉज आई
Yeah,
हैव सीन
yeah.
कंपनीज जो एक MVP लॉन्च करके, राइट, दे टेस्टेड
Mhm.
रिगरसली तब तक उनके 1000 1500 यूजर्स नहीं हो जाते, इफ इट्स अ प्लेटफॉर्म MVP, राइट? उसके बाद जाके देन दे फिगर आउट मोनेटाइजेशन, रेवेन्यूज, बिजनेस मॉडल. सो
Right.
सो हाउ डू यू सी दैट प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट अचीव करने तक लॉन्च रोकें, या पहले लॉन्च करके देन वी वर्क अपॉन इट टू रीच PMF?
No, so I think see, this would be very different for SaaS businesses versus product based businesses or consumer good businesses. What I very strongly believe is that yes, there has to be an MVP always. Right, regardless of where you are at, right? Like अगर मैं अंडरवेयर भी बना रहा हूँ तो मैंने पहले 200 चड्डी बनाई और फ्रेंड्स को बोला यार इसको ट्राई करो, पहनो. How do you feel? It's a plain black underwear that I'm giving you, but it's purely from a fabric perspective. ठीक है. On top of that, when I build my prints, I'll build them, right? Like I'll build them based on consumer sentiment. But I got 100 people to 100, 200 people, 150 people to actually wear my underwear, fill out a form, asking them about the fit, asking them about the sizing structure, asking them how they feel, would they wear it for 24 hours, would they be willing to pay X, Y, and Z, right? So I feel your MVP is a stepping stone to helping you understand product market fit. Um, right? And I think if there are, I would say, the MVP will never take you to 100% stage saying कि यार भाई ये प्रोडक्ट तो मार्केट में दौड़ेगी या ये सर्विस तो मार्केट में दौड़ेगी, right? Your
Right.
MVP will give you a base level idea of how the market is thinking. When you go
Hmm.
for a final launch, you will have to pivot from your MVP based on the responses that you've gotten on your MVP, and that
Right.
is where you can start seeing product market fit, right? um,
Hmm.
and typically I would say that if you regardless of the business, in SaaS or D2C, for the first 6 to 8 months you are
Hmm.
not seeing very strong traction. I would say forget monetization. Monetization is secondary. I think adoption is primary. Monetization is secondary. Um, if you're not seeing strong adoption, and if you're not seeing your users continuously use your business, service, product, etc., in that time frame, then there is something lacking as a part of the product market fit. So I would ideally qualify it as that, right? So yeah.
सो ओके, सो इस चीज को अगर हम D2C के पर्सपेक्टिव से बात करें, राइट, आप D2C में यू आर इमर्जिंग, वन ऑफ द इमर्जिंग प्लेयर्स इन D2C एंड स्पेशली इन द क्लोथिंग सेगमेंट अगर मैं बात करता हूँ तो वहां
Right.
पे जस्ट लाइक यू सेड कि आपने 100-200 आपने अपने चड्डीज बनाए, बेच, यू सोल्ड देम और यू गेव देम फॉर फ्री,
I just
ये
gave
सबसे,
the, I know I gave them away. I gave them away for free to friends.
राइट, सो आपने टेस्ट किया, देन यू फिगर्ड आउट कि अच्छा ये चीज है दैट दे
Hmm.
आर लाइक. बट एट टाइम्स आई हैव सीन दिस हैपनिंग विद मेनी कंपनीज. उन्होंने कंज्यूमर को दिया, टेस्ट किया, फ्री की चीज है, उनको वैल्यू नहीं पता उसकी, राइट, वो वैल्यू फिगर आउट करने में टाइम लगता है. अब वहां पे उन्होंने देखा कि चलो ठीक है, ये इनको पसंद आ रहा है, देन दे लॉन्च. उसके बाद कस्टमर बोलते हैं कि नहीं यार, प्रॉब्लम तो है बट ये प्रोडक्ट की हमें जरूरत नहीं है. वो कंज्यूमर माइंडसेट है कि वो आएगा, दिखेगा, चला जाएगा. तो उसको आपने कैसे सॉल्व किया विद, मतलब बमर के केस में कैसे सॉल्व किया, या बमर का आइडिया शुरुआत कहाँ से हुआ, इससे शुरू करते हैं.
Yeah. So as I was telling you, right, कि bummer is an idea that has happened almost 3 years ago. I would say जब मैं US में पढ़ाई कर रहा था, and looking at the American market, I think there was a lot of sentiment being, or मैं personally being a millennial sort of a digitally savvy buyer. मतलब US, my purchase cycle in the US also was कि यार, I was buying toothbrush and toothpaste also, from your Amazon and whatever, right? That's how digitally savvy as a consumer I was. So naturally I was buying my underwear online, and kind of looking at the market, looking at what the overall perspective on the market was. I think there was a large scale gap in terms of कि यार, fashion has penetrated everywhere as a part of the American market, and very very formatively the underwear space. And when you looked back at India at the time, putting together fashion and underwear was never in question. मतलब वही एक पर्सपेक्टिव था कि मेंस अंडरवेयर में जॉकी है, ब्लैक ब्लू व्हाइट्स ग्रेज एटसेट्रा दो तीन और कलर बना दिए, एंड दैट वाज जॉकी's typical market. And jockey has been, rather, and still is extremely synonymous with the underwear market in India. And then of course you have your Rupas and Luxes and Dixies of the world. And then if you looked at the female sentiment and the female category, it was more like guys like Zivame Clovia, and on the more premium sort of a range, you had your Marks and Spencer and Calvin Klein and all these brands. But these were also more black, blue, whites, and grays, but a few pastel tones, right? So how do you build fashion, fun, work, a millennial Gen Z relatable category in a product that practically everyone wears, or at least I hope सब लोग पहनते हैं, right? Right, that's the agenda. You wear t-shirts, you wear shirts, and underwear is just something no one really pays attention to. So I think that's
Right.
predominantly how the idea came to me कि यार, I think there is a mass level category creation and a disruption that you can look at as a part of um, a product that practically every other Indian is wearing on a day-to-day basis, right?
Hmm.
So that's primarily how the idea happened. I had quit my job in America. I was working there for about 6 months in apparel production.
Right.
I was helping some brands do sourcing and build their product lines in apparel. Mm, quit that job, moved back, and kind of spent about a year building the product for Bummer for the first 1 year. And then 2020 is when we went live with the brand. Um,
Hmm.
so early 2020, matlab, just 10 days before lockdown, actually, first lockdown. That was also a very bad time for us to go live. Uh, so
I can completely understand D2C brand है launch किया COVID आया right tough रहा होगा I can absolutely understand so थोड़ा सा रिसर्च हमने किया तो पता लगा कि आपको जॉब के टाइम पे जब आप सोर्स कर रहे थे मटेरियल कंपनीज का यू आर हेल्पिंग देम सोर्स द मटेरियल एंड एवरी अदर एस्पेक्ट तब आपको माइक्रोमोडाल फैब्रिक मिला right then
yeah,
you got to know about micromodal fabric and gradually then bummer happened सो
yeah.
वहां पे जो आपने एक चीज बोली कैटेगरी क्रिएशन राइट आई
Mm,
थिंक वो एक सबसे टफ चीज है अगर आप D2C में घुस रहे हो एंड अगर
mm,
हम क्लोथिंग की बात करें इनरवेयर की बात करें बाकी कंपनीज का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नेटवर्क बहुत स्ट्रांग है उनके
right,
डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर सेट है उनके रिटेलर सेट है होलसेल
right,
मार्केट दिल्ली में सदर बाजार में खूब बिकता है
right.
राइट और आप इसको D2C में लेके आ रहे थे सो व्हाट वर द चैलेंजेस यू फेस्ड व्हाइल बिल्डिंग बमर एंड creating that market, disrupting the market.
So I think when you're doing category creation, or I mean, at least I would like to believe that it is category creation in a matter of fact. A lot of people may not believe that it's category creation, but it's more of a deeper penetration. But either of the two terms I would say are true by themselves. I I think the larger challenge when you're doing something like that is more to do with education. You have to spend a lot of money on education, which is okay. There are two ways you can do this. Either you spend a lot of money on education, or you build content, you build a certain situation that automatically can go viral, that users can relate to at a very low minimal sort of a cost situation, right? So I would say we spent a lot of time, effort, money on educating the user, first and foremost. And I think the large part of the education, where you say D2C versus offline distribution, ये जो funda hai, a large part of this education is कि यार, most of the consumers are buying t-shirts, shirts, trousers, everything, from Myntra and Amazon Fashion and AGO, and even multiple D2C brands. Now these are products that you can still go to a store, try, look at the fit, feel everything, and then make a decision whether you want to buy these products. वंडरवेयर ऐसी कैटेगरी है जो लार्जली ऑफलाइन डोमिनेंट है, बट ये प्रोडक्ट ऐसी भी है कि आप स्टोर में जाके इसको कभी ट्राई नहीं कर सकते, या तो ना इसको पैकेजिंग में से बाहर निकाल सकते हो. सो D2C इज इनफैक्ट the most optimal solution for underwear, because once you know what you wear, you don't need to walk into a store, and it's
Hmm.
not an urgent buy कि यार मेरे को शाम को पार्टी में जाना है, मेरे को I need a new pair of underwear. Maybe need a new shirt, you maybe need a new t-shirt, but you don't need a new pair of underwear unless you're planning to get laid or something, right? Like uh, uh, that that's essentially the approach, right? So I think buy from the comfort of your home for a product that you can't even try in a store. I mean, I don't need a salesperson to tell me यार ये अच्छा कच्चा है आप ले लो अपने लिए. I don't I
Hmm.
don't I don't need a changing room, right? So I
Right.
think D2C as a part of underwear is going to be a very dramatically changing landscape in the next 5 years, when a larger cohort of users are getting educated about the fact कि यार I don't need to walk into a nearby store to buy my underwear, buy a jockey or whatever. I'm just going to buy it online, and in 2 3 days it's going to arrive at my house.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think that's the seismic shift that we are trying to make. And of course, I think, as I said, education is key when kind of building such a mechanism and ecosystem.
Absolutely. So, शार्क टैंक के बारे में या उससे पहले अगर मैं बात करूं,
Hmm.
आपने फंडिंग कब रेज की? व्हेन डिड यू रियलाइज कि नाउ यू शुड गो फॉर अ वेंचर कैपिटल राउंड और अ फंडिंग राउंड? क्योंकि आपका बूटस्ट्रैप में जस्ट लाइक आपने बताया था शार्क टैंक पर भी कि आपका ब्रांड स्टार्टिंग से प्रॉफिटेबल है, राइट?
Hmm.
यू
Hmm.
वर प्रॉफिटेबल, you were making money, you were putting it back into the business and growing month on month. So कब रियलाइज हुआ कि यार अब मौका है, अब फंडिंग उठाते हैं एंड इसको नेक्स्ट लेवल पे लेके जाते हैं?
Um, I think
एंड
यार
कितना
ऐसा
पैसा, एडिंग टू दैट, सॉरी फॉर इंटरप्शन, आपने
हाँ,
उस तक कितना पैसा लगा दिया था बिजनेस में अपना?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so I would say, see, funding is a very subjective thing. Depends, right? Uh, ये जब पूरा Silicon Valley and before the whole funding became a thing in the last I would say about 12-15 years, um, everyone was building profitable businesses. If you think about it, and
Right.
people who were not building profitable businesses were typically loss-making businesses, and they would typically shut down in a couple of months once the founder feels or the entrepreneur feels कि यार this is ये long term sustainable नहीं है, right? And
Hmm.
then comes along Silicon Valley and everything in the last 15-20 odd years sort of situation in India about 12-15 years, right? So I think there are two methods to this, very straightforward, which I would like to tell anyone who's listening in is कि if you want to build a if you want to build a sustainable business, a long term business, you don't need capital. If you're okay if you're okay with scaling your business over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, then I don't think you need to raise capital. You just need to find the right product market fit. You need to find the right balance of revenue to expense ratio, typically, right? You don't need to raise unbelievable external capital, and those are things that you can suffice by way of debt as well. You don't need to dilute equity for that. But the goal that you're trying to accomplish, if you want to accomplish that in the next 3 to 5 years, you need capital. You need external funding. So I think this is the first question that any entrepreneur or founder should answer for themselves. कि यार मैं ये बिजनेस अगर अगले 20 साल में बड़ा बनाऊंगा, 100, 200, 300 करोड़ का बिजनेस या 500 करोड़ का बिजनेस अगर अगले 10-15 साल में बनाना है, तो वो हो सकता है विदाउट एक्सटर्नल कैपिटल, तो ठीक है।
Hmm.
बट वही 500 करोड़ का बिजनेस अगर तुम्हें 3 साल में बनाना है, तो शायद बूटस्ट्रैपिंग पे पॉसिबल नहीं है। नाउ दिस इज द कॉल ऑफ द एंटरप्रेन्योर और द फाउंडर दैट विच राउट आई वांट टू टेक, एंड बेसिस दैट राउट आई थिंक you take path where you want to go. So I think it's a relevancy of time as a matter of fact.
राइट। सो जब आपने इसको थोड़ा सा और ब्रेक करते हैं, राइट, देयर आर वेरियस स्टेजेस। कुछ बिजनेसेस आइडिया स्टेज पर भी फंडिंग उठाते हैं, कुछ
Right.
एमवीपी पे उठाते हैं। देयर आर वेरियस स्टेज, आइडिया प्री सीड, सीड ए बी सी डी एंड सो ऑन, राइट।
Hmm.
सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक कि आइडिया स्टेज पे जो फंडिंग रेज कर रहे हैं कंपेयर टू
Hmm.
दैट कि जो एमवीपी स्टेज पे वैलिडेट होके फंडिंग रेज कर रहे हैं,
Hmm.
राइट? सो हाउ डू वी इवैल्यूएट दैट? आइडिया स्टेज पे तो कुछ है ही नहीं उसके पास, सिंपल एक उसने प्रेजेंटेशन बनाया, उसने डेक बनाया, जो उसने रिसर्च किया था एंटरप्रेन्योर ने, और उसने वो शो किया, राइट? सो ये वैल्यूएशन का गेम कैसे काम करता है? बिकॉज वी हैव सीन सीरीज ए फंडिंग राउंड्स ऑफ 50 million, we have seen idea stage, it's $1 billion round as well, right?
That is, I
So
mean, one-off case of Adam Newman, but I don't know if
that happens, but it's rare,
but
but that happens.
yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, so I think, see, when you typically trying to raise that idea stage, right? I think it's extremely important. The only people who've gotten funded at idea stage are typically founders who have a very, very, very strong pedigree of building and selling past businesses, or very strong educational pedigree, Harvard, IIT, types, kind of a situation. And there is very strong metal in the idea, and the investors kind of believe कि यार ये सही बंदा है, इसको execute कर लेगा. The vision is right, right? For a first time founder with no strong educational background and no strong pedigree in terms of past work experience, etc. um I think raising at idea stage is probably extremely difficult. If it happens, amazing. I'm sure there would be cases where it has happened, but would be very rare situation, right? And that too for a young founder. Matlab, even if I'm a first time founder, but I'm 40 years old, I have 10 years of experience doing X, Y, and Z, then quite likely that I know the industry too well to disrupt it and raise capital at idea stage. Um,
Right.
so I think there are no pros and cons. As far as you talk about valuation, I think valuation is always going to be extremely arbitrary, unless and until you are at a slightly mature stage. So pre-revenue sort of fundings, or pre-seed level fundings, and even typically seed stage fundings. Whether I can speak majorly for D2C segment, would be a lot to do with founder and market fit rather than product market fit.
Right.
You will get backed because the investor believes product अच्छा है, आदमी अच्छा है, या the guy or the girl whoever is running it these are two things which are good, and we believe that this guy or girl can actually make this business to something big in the near future.
हम्म
Invest a lot of that.
हम्म सो बीनेक्स की स्टोरी थोड़ी सी बताओ ब्रीफ में. लाइक आपने भी फर्स्ट राउंड बीनेक्स के साथ रेज किया एंड दैट्स अ मार्की इन्वेस्टर, आई वुड से वन ऑफ द मेजर इन्वेस्टर्स. सो
Right.
हाउ डिड दैट हैपन? आपने उनको रीच आउट कैसे किया? हाउ हाउ डिड दैट एक्चुअली हैपन? थोड़ा ब्रीफ में बता दो. लाइक.
So I think it was extremely organic, man. I would say, and that's the rather interesting part, right? Where I think I was talking to someone from BNext that kind of reached out because they wanted to dive into the D2C space and D2C ecosystem, and I just started talking to their analyst on LinkedIn for a very long time. हम लोग हर हफ्ते, every 1 week, every 2 weeks, we used to jump on calls trying to understand what we're doing, what we're building, because they had seen ads from Bummer on Facebook and Instagram. And they were very keen on the category. Like they believed that the category has a good potential in terms of disruption. So we kind of dated for about 4 5 months. I mean, in the business world, dated for about 4 5 months where we, मतलब पूरी कुंडली निकाल ली मेरी. Right. And then I think it was a point where we kept on talking, we kept on discussing, and everything was clear in terms of traction, numbers, everything. I think then it was from my side, ki, yaar, now if you guys genuinely believe that I'm the right founder for this, we don't have too much traction, we don't have too big of numbers, but if you believe in the idea, if you believe that I'm the right founder to actually make this happen, then give me a term sheet. And that just happened, right? Like they went back to their IC, they went back to their partners, and the partners loved it, the partners liked it, and I had a term sheet on my hand in the next 10 days, and I was like, amazing. So it happened very organically. It was not like I was in the market to look for a fundraising round. I was speaking to 10 15 30 40 investors. बस एक ही जन के साथ बात कर रहा था, and that materialized because they genuinely believed, right? Which is what I think makes a very big impact.
I think आज के टाइम पे थोड़ा उल्टा हो रहा है. जस्ट लाइक यू सेड, पीपल बिल्ड एन एमवीपी एंड दे स्ट्रेट अवे गो इनटू द फंडिंग मार्केट कि भाई मुझे फंड्स दे दो, फंड्स दे दो, फंड्स दे दो. एंड दैट इज हैपनिंग विद मेजॉरिटी ऑफ पीपल.
Yeah, that's typically also because you don't want to bootstrap it with too much of your own capital,
राइट.
right?
कि अपना पैसा नहीं लगाना, अपना रिस्क नहीं चाहिए भाई, वीसी को हम रिस्क सारा उठाने देते हैं. एंड दैट्स एक्चुअली अ कंजर्वेटिव पॉइंट. ठीक है, उस पे मैं अगेंस्ट नहीं हूँ उसके,
Hmm.
बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली वो कंजर्वेटिवनेस रहती है अपने पैसे को लेके, हर किसी की रहती है. सो
Hmm.
इसको थोड़ा और समझते हैं एंड लेट्स मेक पीपल ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड. ये टर्म शीट जो हम बार बार बात करते हैं इन एवरी फंडिंग राउंड, ये टर्म
Right.
शीट एक्चुअल में क्या है? व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इट इज? कौन सा डॉक्यूमेंट है जिसके पीछे इतने पागल होते हैं लोग?
Yeah, so I think term sheet, Sarthak, I would say is the most basic. You can typically call it sort of your letter of intent from the investor that, hey, we'll put in XYZ amount of capital at X Y and Z valuation, and these will be sort of the basic terms of the deal. In most cases, a term sheet is very very basic. Couple of pages of documentation. What it is extremely important for founders to remember that the term sheet is not a commitment to fund you. It's just a letter of intent per se. Term sheet is also not legally binding. So in case, even if you have signed it, in either the investor or you have the right to rescind it in case you want to. So it's basically, term sheet is a letter of intent, but of course it's a I would say a soft commitment from the investor that we want to invest, and then of course, I mean, your due diligence processes and are all subject to final commitment and SHA, SSA sort of a situation. वो DD के बाद होगा.
Fair point. So, coming back to, continuing with it, आपने बीनेक्स से फंडिंग राउंड रेज किया, राइट? उसके बाद ऐसा क्या आया दिमाग में कि शार्क टैंक में गए? लाइक बीनेक्स के बाद तो बीनेक्स अगला राउंड आपका लीड कर सकता था. दैट वाज एन ऑब्वियस थिंग दैट वी ऑल सी, कि जो
Right.
सीड राउंड जिसने रेज किया, जहां से भी रेज किया किसी भी कंपनी ने, यूजुअली
Right.
दैट वेंचर कैपिटल लीड्स द नेक्स्ट राउंड in a
Right.
most ordinary scenario. But what took you to Shark Tank?
Shark Tank was, I would say, Sarthak, Shark Tank was a very uh, sort of a fluke for me, right? Like, I mean, in all honesty, I did not even know they were starting off in India, right? But it's surprising that a friend of mine had sent me a link saying, "Here, Shark Tank India, aa raha hai ji. You just started Bummer. Why don't you go apply?" Right? So I applied. Got through one round, got through second round, got through third round, went for my audition. I was just winging it, right? Like basically the whole process was, "Ki, yaar, I've just raised my B next round. I don't need more capital right now. But might as well. I mean, such a large franchisee is coming to India. Might as well apply and sort of go for it, right?" So I kind of applied, and keep getting through one round after the other. And before I knew it, I was standing on the stage in front of the Sharks. So I think that was absolutely surreal as a moment. But I think going through these processes, I realized that more than taking the money from Shark Tank, it's more about the visibility and the marketing that your brand or your personal brand can also, as a matter of fact, get, right. Like, as ridiculous as that may sound, I would say 90% of the people जो Shark Tank में जा रहे हैं ना, वो marketing के लिए जा रहे हैं, वो पैसा उठाने के लिए नहीं जा रहे। जितना भी मतलब तुम हम्बल होके बोल दो कि नहीं यार मेरे को इनकी एक्सपर्टीज से बहुत फायदा होगा, ये होगा, वो होगा, दैट इज गोना कीप हैपनिंग, बट आई एम श्योर दे आर अमेजिंग, द sharks are amazing in terms of helping you out, in terms of giving you that capital, time, energy, etc. But the larger thing at play is definitely the marketing, and I think I'm not going to deny that played a very, very important role in how Bummer grew.
Absolutely. Continuing to that, Sule, अगर हम Shark Tank की particularly बात करते हैं, so how did
Mhm.
things change after Shark Tank? Apart from the sales and everything, what were your key learnings? कुछ key learning Shark Tank के बाद, Shark Tank में, कहीं भी during the process?
I would say the largest thing that has changed is brand value, right? Uh, Beyond anything, brand value and face value, right? कि आज मैं अगर एयरपोर्ट पे भी जाता हूँ, कहीं ट्रैवल कर रहा हूँ, कोई रेस्टोरेंट में फ्रेंड्स के साथ खाना खा रहा हूँ, पीपल रिकॉग्नाइज योर फेस कि हाँ यार तू शार्क टैंक वाला बंदा है, right?
हाँ,
And that's phenomenal validation to doing what you're doing. He's like, I loved your page. All these people are like, loved your page bro, शार्क टैंक में देखा था, बढ़िया लगा, आप सही कर रहे हो, हमने प्रोडक्ट खरीदा था आपका, बढ़िया प्रोडक्ट भी बढ़िया लगा. That's great validation. I don't care about anything else, right? So I think that's one of the most, and today maybe a lot of people have bought or not bought from the brand, that is secondary. But a lot of people now know what Bummer is and what Bummer does. If you ask someone ki yaar, what does Bummer do? There's a good chunk of people who know that Bummer makes underwear. Whether they bought from us or not is secondary. शायद अच्छा
हम्म,
डिजाइन अच्छा नहीं लगा, वेबसाइट अच्छा नहीं लगा, शायद they don't need the underwear, whatever, but they know कि ये है. And that is in my point, that is the largest validation you can get.
हम्म. So about the learnings, like आपकी कुछ learnings रही होंगी from the tank or maybe from the sharks who have come on board.
um
2 or 3 learnings.
Per se, from learnings, I don't know if there is, I mean, too much to shed light on this, to be very frank.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, if anyone gets a chance to go on Shark Tank, you should not definitely not let that go. I think it adds phenomenal value in terms of brand and visibility. But I think one of the core learnings to take away from Shark Tank also is, maybe not two or three, but the one major one would be, uh, that it gives you immense visibility, right? And one of the larger things to take note of as a part of that is how you as an entrepreneur can handle that volume, that capacity, that spike that a Shark Tank will offer to you, right? Because I know a lot of people जिनका episode air हुआ and they didn't know what to do with so much traffic, so many orders, so many people downloading their apps or people doing X, Y, and Z with them. Yeah, right. Their LinkedIn's were blowing up. They didn't know what to do, right? So I think being prepared as an entrepreneur, if you're someone who's going to Shark Tank or wants to go to Shark Tank, if you don't have the readiness to take your business to explosive heights, don't do it, right? Like, as simple as that.
So basically, what you are saying is business should be ready to handle that kind of a scale,
And not just
right?
Shark Tank, right? This is not just Shark Tank. There could be
Right.
multiple events as a part of your business, um, right? Which could give you a sudden spike. It could be, let's say, even something like a Prime Day sale. As a business, you have to be teamed up, geared up, ready to handle any format of volume, size, scale, capacity. Even if you don't have the right resources and team, you should be able to hustle for that time period and make it happen, right? So I think that's very important, and this is not just a Shark Tank lesson, but this is a generic lesson as a part of business. How do you handle spikes, pressures, and increased momentum with very little resources? I think that's the definition of Shark Tank.
हम्म सो एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन शार्क टैंक के बारे में, बिकॉज हमें जो टीवी पे दिखता है वो 10-12 मिनट का आपका पिच
Correct.
दिखता है, बट एक्चुअल में आई थिंक वो 30-40 मिनट्स की एक रिच कॉन्वर्सेशन होती है. सो
Right.
व्हाट एग्जैक्टली हैपेंस इन दैट 30-40 मिनट्स, क्या एग्जैक्टली क्या होता है?
It's very similar to what you guys see on the TV, to be very honest. I mean, it's 30-40 minutes of being in on the stage in front of the sharks. Then it's typically, 3 4 whatever pitch you saw is the pitch that you saw, and then it's followed by question and answer, right? And these questions and answers are exactly what you saw, but they've just cut off the non-relevant questions from the what you saw on TV. That's about it. Baki, they show everything.
Okay, that was I think true in your case as well. Like I think some of the I would say I'm not able to frame it correctly, but जो भी आपके differences हुए mindset, जो भी आपके conversation हुआ असली गोबर के साथ,
Doglapan. I was supposedly called a Doglapan.
right? The first person to face that दोगलापन वाला dialogue, I think it was
Yeah,
you only.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that was also a learning that how entrepreneurs के जो mindset है वो differ कर सकते हैं related to a same topic, right?
Absolutely, absolutely,
So so
absolutely.
so moving ahead, so now एक एक वो चला है कि विंटर आ रहा है फॉर द स्टार्टअप्स, राइट? पहले लास्ट ईयर में देयर वर फंडिंग राउंड्स, अब विंटर आ रहा है. नाउ देयर वुड बी फंडिंग राउंड्स, बट उनके पैरामीटर्स, द वे इट हैपेंस, ड्यू डिलिजेंस प्रोसेस वुड बी स्ट्रिक्ट. सो बमर किस तरह से हैंडल करा? बिकॉज D2C आई थिंक इफेक्ट हो सकता है इससे, बिकॉज ये कैपिटल इंटेंसिव है काफी हद तक.
Correct. Yeah. So Sarthak, I would say we've been affected till a certain extent for sure. Right. And anyone who is not profitable at this point in time, right, who's burning cash basically as a business, is going to face a very big challenge. So there are two things that you can do as a part of this funding winter, right? So keeping it on the down low, but we just closed our pre-series A about 10 days ago. So
Hmm.
that's been exciting. But only I know the struggle that I've gone through the last 2 3 months to raise this round. मतलब हालत फट के हाथ में आ गई थी, मतलब literally. I don't know if you can include this in the podcast or not, but but
So
genuinely
I think it has not been announced, right? Right.
it is
मतलब मैंने
not
कहीं
going to
नहीं
be
देखा.
announced because it is an undisclosed round. It will get announced in the
Hmm.
next 15 20 days, but it will come out as an undisclosed round.
Okay. Okay.
So it'll come out in the next 10 15 days. But yeah, man, I think it's super difficult right now. Funding is absolutely under a crunch. It's either because of the sentiment more than anything. I do not. I mean, I'm a personal believer that there is no winter. Uh,
Hmm.
but the sentiment is sort of pretty messed up, which is why a lot of VCs have made policies to kind of cut back on checks and cut back on new funding and reserve capital for follow-on rounds. So
Hmm.
I definitely do believe that's a challenge. But at the same time, there are so many funds that have recently closed newer funds, right? Like Axel
Hmm.
closed the 500 million, Sequoia closed the 500 million. Now they don't have any option but to deploy this capital. So
Right.
if you think about it, the winter is not really going to last very long in case it does, right? And at the same time, I think if you want to, if you're not able to raise the round and if you still want to navigate the funding winter, there is one very straightforward policy, is to pivot your business, right? This is the darkest time in case it's going to last for another 12 15 months and you're not able to raise capital for at least one and a half another years. It's impossible to survive. It's impossible to survive if you're a burning business. So might as well pivot, might as well pivot. Even if you're a small business or a big business, extremely important to pivot and turn to at least a break even sort of a stage, if not cash positive, but turn your business into a break even business, right? um,
Right.
and even despite raising capital at Bummer, we are doing that right now. We don't want to burn anymore, right? Like we are not going for hyper growth where investor says कि यार every month 30-40% growth तो होना ही चाहिए वरना business का करने का फायदा क्या है? No, I don't believe in that. I don't think anyone should believe in that.
Hmm.
It's okay.
So what
It's
you're
okay to
saying
have
is,
bad months.
so you have to grow slowly during the winter, right? Just to survive it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things are dependent on cash situation of the business. I think again because it will vary for from business to business drastically.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think survival is key. Use a lot of debt to finance yourself. Use revenue-based financing or any other format of financing to survive. I think that's those as much as people will say कि IRR बहुत high होता है और वो सब. But it's great capital to survive. And continuously because pivot रातों रात नहीं हो जाएगा business. So you have to take the next 3-4 months, have cash for the next 3-4 months, so that in that time you pivot your business, so that by the fifth month you are at least breaking even or closing cash positive, and then you don't have a problem.
Great. I think एक last एक रखते हैं, not the last, but some of the things you would suggest, right? हमको ना जैसे if I talk about the Gen Z, हमें हर चीज का hack चाहिए होता है, right? We just need everything real quick. और ये Zepto और Zepto ने तो और आदत बिगाड़ दी है, especially in the grocery segment. ठीक
Correct.
है, तो D2C को क्रैक करने के लिए ऐसे कौन से कुछ टिप्स या आई वुड से जो आपकी लर्निंग थी जो आपके लिए वर्क करें, जो हैक्स,
Mm.
ऐसे कुछ 3-4 हैक्स आप बताओगे, स्पेशली इन द प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड बिजनेसेस, D2C बिजनेसेस.
Right. So I would say one very important thing about D2C, at least if you're in the D2C space now or have been in the space for a very long time or planning to enter into the D2C space, um, paid marketing is broken. ठीक है, Facebook, Instagram, paid marketing, or you Google ads, it's broken. So never ever put your eggs in one single basket. Don't say कि यार मैं वेबसाइट को स्केल करूंगा बढ़िया और हम सही से धंधा करेंगे. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. Otherwise, it's a death pool unless and until you've raised phenomenal amount of capital and you have that investor money to burn on higher CACs, right? So I think that would be my first and foremost thought process when doing D2C, to not put your eggs in all or in one single basket. And by one single basket I mean primarily your website. um, right. I think beyond that I would also very strongly believe, as a part of D2C, one very important thing that every D2C brand owner should be doing and should do is talk to your consumer. If it's you or if it's your customer support team. I remember the first one and a half years of Bummer where we did not have a customer support team. I used to dedicate one and a half hours every single day to just call at least 10-15 customers और उनके साथ बात करता था कि यार आपने परचेज किया है, हाउ डू यू फील, हाउ डू यू लाइक इट, what can we improve, right? And that process continues even today, where we in this process in the last 2 years we've made close to about 6,000 calls to customers today, including me and my team. I'm still friends with one of our few of our very first customers, right? And these are now what happens is whenever you want to launch something new also, I just reach out to all these 10 50 60 100 customers that I am directly in touch with and say कि यार ये लॉन्च कर रहे हैं, आप बताओ यार कैसा चलेगा, or how much would you be willing to pay for this? Can I send you a sample? Would you be willing to review this for me? Right?
Right.
You build a strong community of people who then become patrons of the brand. So continuously
Right.
do that as a part of D2C, right? So I think these are I would say two extremely important things as a part of, and I would say even one third thing which I feel has worked very well in our favor. A lot of brands in D2C, especially the product space, what would they do is yeah, they don't want to take warehousing logistical challenges. So typically would outsource warehousing logistics to a 3PL. At Bummer, from day one, we've always owned our own warehouse, own picking packing team. Now, what that happens is, um, it standardizes processes for me big time. Uh, there is clear view in terms of what's happening in terms of my operational, logistical, and supply chain. With 3PL that will never happen. People feel कि यार क्यों हेडेक लेना है 3PL का, क्यों हेडेक लेना है वेयरहाउसिंग का, लेट्स गो टू 3PL, वो ही फुलफिल करेगा, जैसे ऑर्डर आएगा हमें कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है. बट यू आर लूजिंग अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कंट्रोल ओवर योर सप्लाई चेन, which may give you the peace of mind, but at the same time will not give you the in-depth knowledge that you need. If you already have 3 4 years of experience or 2 3 years of experience in D2C, and then you feel, yeah, now I know everything about my supply chain, I don't need to manage this myself. I can give it to a 3PL so I can reduce the headache. But from day one, does not make sense. On day one, you should be the one packing orders. You should be the one shipping orders. You should be the one knowing कहाँ से कितने क्या order आ रहे हैं, product कैसे pack होके जा रहा है. If you've never done that, if you never know that, which so many founders make mistakes with, then in the future operations is going to be a nightmare for you.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. So, just one last questions, last words from you. Like for the emerging entrepreneurs, especially those who are in their 18 to 24 years of age, or maybe 25 years of age at the max,
ठीक है.
mid 20s.
Mhm.
उनके लिए स्पेशली व्हेन दे आर स्टार्टिंग अप, राइट, दे हैव बूटस्ट्रैप्ड कैपिटल, कॉलेज के बच्चे हैं तो अपने स्टाइपेंड से करेंगे, थोड़े बहुत पैसे घर से लेंगे, राइट. सो उनके लिए व्हाट वुड बी योर सजेशंस हाउ टू गो विद इट, वेदर इट्स D2C, वेदर इट्स एडटेक. एडटेक की मार्केट लोग कहते हैं सैचुरेट हो गई है, बट स्टिल देयर आर सम स्पेसेस,
Right.
right? So any of the businesses, never mind, but what would be your suggestions on it? How should they go about it if they are just starting with an idea?
Right. No, I think the one thing that has helped me the most, and that I feel can help the most to anyone who's starting out, is the fact that, you know, the hustle culture is real, right? As far as you are a young entrepreneur, where you will do things, you will do a certain things wrong, which is mandatory. You are not, if you are in the, especially in the, if you're in the 20 25 year old age group, जहाँ पे you don't have too much experience, you don't know what's right, what's wrong, and you have to trial, you have to do a trial and error to actually realize whether this is right for my business. So I think the most important thing is to never stop, right? Like I think the largest thing that people fail to do at this time is ki they will start with their idea, they will make a presentation, they will research something on the product, and then realize कि यार नहीं ये तो बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है बनाने में, या इसका अभी तो वेबसाइट कराना पड़ेगा, फोटोशूट करना पड़ेगा, पैकेजिंग सोर्स करना पड़ेगा, we'll have to do so many X Y and Z things, then we will have to go into market launch, do social media, do performance marketing. The thought of that scares people a lot, which is why they stop doing it, कि यार ये नहीं हो पाएगा. What I would say is, don't look at what you're going to do in the future. Don't look at what you have to tackle 6 months down the line. You have to manage, you have to rent out an office, you have to rent out a warehouse, whatever you need to do, packaging, सब कुछ, ठीक है? Think about what you have to do today. Get through today. Wake up tomorrow morning, do what you have to do tomorrow. That way, 365 days will pass and you will not even realize that you've accomplished so much. But if you overburden yourself by thinking कि 6 महीने बाद ये करना है, 8 महीने बाद ये करेंगे, 10 महीने बाद ये करेंगे, it will not get you, and it'll scare you by the thought that I have so much to yet to accomplish. But rather, if you just look at what I have to accomplish in today's time, you can do it very easily. So I think this is the most, and that's what got me through. I got extremely scared. I got extremely scared कि यार कितना सारा करना है brand launch करने से पहले. But the good part was that I took only one day, and that's how 1 year went by. Brand had launched, scale up भी शुरू हो गया था, and then it's just a roller coaster ride.
No, the rest is history, I think. उसके बाद
There
तो there's no looking back.
Yeah. So I would strongly recommend to look at a day at a time and not the larger picture, because the larger picture usually tends to scare you and will make you quit, and you don't want to quit. So
But
I think
investors को तो larger picture दिखानी पड़ेगी ना.
ठीक है, but investors don't see. Larger picture, I think, comes from a business side, where it should also be your dream that I will build this in the next 5 years. I will build this into a
Right.
100, 200, 500 crore company, right?
Right.
I'm talking about is the tasks and effort that you have to put in as an entrepreneur. Investor doesn't care कि तुम social media कैसे कर रहे हो. Investor doesn't care कि तुम packaging material कहाँ से source कर रहे हो. Investor doesn't care तुम photoshoot कहाँ से कैसे करा रहे हो. But that is the large scale effort, and I'm talking about larger things. There are at least 1,000 other small things that you have to tackle that the investor doesn't care about. तुम कुछ भी करके देख लो, but करना तो पड़ेगा ना. That's my point.
एब्सोल्युटली आई थिंक ये बहुत फेयर पॉइंट है मतलब विजन में रखो क्या बड़ा करना है बट अल्टीमेटली यू हैव टू मेक स्मॉलर टारगेट्स टू अचीव बिगर गोल्स दैट
Yeah,
इज आई थिंक द क्रक्स ऑफ व्हाट यू से
absolutely. Absolutely.
फंडिंग के पीछे आई थिंक नहीं भागना चाहिए मतलब अगर ज़रूरत बहुत ही ज़्यादा कैपिटल इंटेंसिव है तो बिल्कुल यू शुड गो फॉर इट आई थिंक
Yeah,
बिकॉज that's what I think your learnings would be कि that was I think a lot of insights for everyone including me
yeah,
because I did the same mistakes right funding के पीछे day one से भागा I was reaching out to people on LinkedIn so I guess this was an insight for me that how should I look forward now right now
yeah.
I'm just like we are entering into educating students we are helping them realize कि भाई doesn't matter uh, you are from a tier 2 tier 3 college city whatever your
Doesn't matter.
learning and your skills learn that learning and those acquiring of skill that should never stop and money should not be a factor to it that's what we are trying to achieve here
Agree.
right so I think there are many entrepreneurs watching you once this podcast is uploaded so I guess that would your LinkedIn would be bursted after this I guess so that would be one thing of course if you are hiring for bummer are there any internships going on is there
We are
anything
hiring for every single role right now. If you're someone who feels you want to work with a cool company, we are all bunch of less than 30-year-olds as a part of this company. So happy to have people reach out. We are on simply on careers@bummer.in. Whatever the role is, whether it's a tech or a non-tech role or a marketing role or any format of role, uh, we're more than happy to talk to people across
so
domains.
is there any portal or something like where they can see the opportunities listed or anything like that or they're
Um,
simply let
anyone could just reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, or they could just email on careers@bummer.in, and someone from the team should get back there.
Cool. That was really nice, Sule. Thanks for once
Thanks,
again.
man.
Thanks for joining us, and it was full of insights about D2C, about funding, about VCs, of course about Shark Tank as well.
Yeah,
I guess we are looking forward to host you in many more podcasts, and also a few of the few of the more events that we will be hosting for entrepreneurs.
yeah.
Moreover, well, I think that's it. There are, I don't have words, to be very honest, how to thank you for coming up.
Absolutely,
And
my pleasure, Sarthak.
absolutely. And I think that's it. If there's anything that you would like to say, if you'd like to tell us,
No,
if
I
you,
think that's about it from my end. I think there's been enough chatter over the last 1 hour talking about life and Bummer and D2C. But thanks so much, Sarthak, for having me. It was brilliant. I think you guys are doing an amazing job at Skilly. Uh, so cheers for having me, man.